This is your daily briefing, and you are most welcome to it. Harry Kane to Manchester City. I have a source who, I think I've mentioned this before, doesn't bombard me with information, and I would suggest that most of the sort of assets I get are pretty unpublishable, but they help me frame lots of other stuff. And if I just blurted them all out the whole time, A, it would blow their cover, and B, it would just make me look like a madman, because there's all sorts of weird stuff that goes on at football clubs, and it all needs to be in context and what have you. But I'm told that it's on like Fat Pat's thong, and that Kane is not missing in action for no reason. Failed to turn up yesterday, failed to turn up again this morning, and it's my understanding from the Standard that Tottenham are planning to hit Harry Kane with a hefty fine. That'll learn him for his training no-show. Significant fine after the striker failed to report back to the club on Monday. Supposed to come in for COVID testing and for pre-season training. You can find all you want. These machinations are part of the Daniel Levy pity me routine. And I think I've got quotes somewhere else. It'd be helpful if I found them now. But the business of, Spurs digging their heels in and all this business, absolute nonsense. This is all about the cosmetic, how it looks from the outside, so Daniel doesn't look as if he's doing what he's going to do, and which is to sell one of our best players again. It's got endless form for it. The thing that I don't like, and they say that the final penalty for Kane would be dependent upon how the situation unravels itself and how many days he's absent. So Baldy can get his abacus out on that one. But what I wanted to say about this situation is that I think there's a fair amount of pecking and bullying going on here, and I'll just call it straight like that, because I can't remember. Let's not go back in time, but we'll just briefly for Tottenham, we'll just say Berbatov, Modric, Bale. They were all under contract with Tottenham, and they all walked. And they all walked after feigning an injury, my head's been turned, all this nonsense. They essentially played up and went on strike. And I'm getting the sense, certainly I should know better by now, but if you look on social media, there's people whining about, Kane's doing himself no favours here, and that he's under contract and he's got an obligation and all the rest of it. I mean, that Sancho guy that Manchester United just bought, what, was he a free agent? Was he out of contract? No. If we went through all of the transfers that have been done so far this window, I guarantee you, with the exception of players that have been let go, like Townsend's gone to Everton. His deal with Palace had expired. But with the exception of situations like that, most of these guys, they've got time on the meter, and they've decided to get out. And what you've got to really understand here is the difference between a football contract and contracts, shall we say, in the real world. So if, for example, you rent shop premises, you have a flower shop or something, you sign a 30-year lease or a 20-year lease or whatever it might be. You can't turn around, unless there's a clause in the lease, which is unlikely, you can't turn around and say to whoever your landlords are after 6 weeks or 6 years or whatever, look, do you know something? I have no feel for this. I'm not doing any money and I shouldn't have done it. Oh yeah, sure. Just hoover up after you and drop the keys back on Thursday. Doesn't work like that, because the contracts are very legally binding. Football contracts, to say they're a movable feast is an understatement. They're designed primarily to safeguard certain parties, and that's why we always have this dance around contracts with talks, because it's a mix of getting the personal terms right, which is essentially what the player has in his backpack. That's for him, and which is normally lumps of cash and discounted vehicles and all the rest of the nonsense that goes on. But for the player and for the club, they both want to be taken care of to a point whereby the dance gets to the stage whereby, should things go wrong, they both have enough clout in the agreement, because it's not going to go to an industrial tribunal. It's not going to go to citizens' advice, or, just stop it with all this. So, Spurs have got 6 years or 5 years or whatever it is on the deal, and people are mocking Kane for having signed this thing. Perfectly within his rights, and it gives excellent leverage to ENIC to demand plenty of money for the player. So, I just find all this sort of attacking of the lad really unfair and deeply just embarrassing, because it doesn't stack up. It's just an opportunity to pile on. I mean, front and centre, we have, of course, the most charming and fragrant Jamie Carragher, who's tweeted a couple of fascinating contributions to the debate. Carragher, so why sign a 6-year contract? Gentleman's agreement, and then laughter emoticons. I don't think Harry Kane's mentioned a gentleman's agreement. I think that was something that came from the press. And I think if you don't understand why a player would sign a 6-year deal when they're certain that they're not going to see it through, then you're a bit of a chump. Like I say, it's not complicated. This is actually bullying from a guy who has never, ever had anybody break the bank in order to try and get his signature. So, you're commenting, Jamie, about something which is a little bit beyond your pay grade, mate. And there's more. Carragher goes on, I disagree. It is wrong not to turn up for training. We all know he wants to go and can totally understand why. Full stop. It takes brain out. But Harry should not ruin his name or relationship with the supporters who will idolise him supporters who idolise him just to get the move. Spurs will always be his club. And this is, I think, petty at best. At best, it's petty. Like I say, Jamie, you're describing a situation that you've never been in yourself. Perhaps talk to us about own goals or spitting at people out of cars. That might be a little bit more useful. Stay in your lane. That would be my advice. So there's more wherever you go. The pity me routine from Levy, Spurs chairman digging in and refusing to countenance the sale. This comes from David Heitner in The Guardian, and this again I would at best describe as unhelpful. Doesn't aid the conversation at all, and it's kind of like a kid who's been denied his pocket money, then telling you in great detail how he didn't want to buy anything anyway. So Heitner says here, Harry Kane hits the nuclear button, but must hope it does not blow up in his face. Wow. Tottenham striker has let himself down by failing to turn up, and his move will only harden Daniel Levy's position. I don't want to think of Levy's position, hardening or otherwise, quite frankly. But where is this going, Mr. Heitner? I mean, where is this going? So now we know Harry Kane is really prepared to do whatever it takes. Oh, I mean, it makes him sound like an absolute monster. All he's done is stay at home. He's done nothing to warrant this. It's just people taking a free pop at him. The question had nagged away since the final week of last season, when Kane and his camp had given the definitive signal that they wanted out, and the battle lines were drawn, with Daniel Levy, the Spurs chairman, digging in, refusing to countenance the sale. Oh wow, this is it. Would he withdraw his cooperation at Spurs? Surely not. The dirty, because to do the dirty like this would be so unbecoming of a homegrown hero and an England captain. I don't know, outside of the press, who is buying any of this. I just think it's like I say, it's petty, bordering on malevolent, and again, I would suggest that if some of these people were a little bit busier, they wouldn't quite focus their time so much on what dozens of footballers, in fact, globally, hundreds of thousands of footballers are doing all over the world. So Harry Kane, for my money, I'm disappointed that he is going, but I fully understand why, because he's been completely and utter let down by the charlatans that run this club. Straightforward as that. I don't know if this is to keep on side with the Tottenham hierarchy, in order that after it goes, oh, did you see my piece I put in the you know, but grown-ups, you and I are talking to each other, we know this doesn't add up. So, as a side note, and this really should have been the thing I led with, I mean, my headline on this was bang, because it was actually kind of like important, is that several interesting Italian journalists, Sky Sports Italy, at Atalanta closing in on Demiral, with him likely to arrive tomorrow with the Serie A club. Romero offered accepted, payment structure to be sorted in the next few hours. That was in the early hours of this morning UK time, and that's backed up by Fabrizio Romano, who says that the bid is currently at 50 million euro, which ties up with the 47 million that we got after the weekend. So all to unravel this week, but I really hope, it would just be nice if somebody comes out, and I appreciate my role in the pecking order of journalism at this stage, but it would be great if somebody for a major paper or outlet would come out and just say, hang on a minute, why is there this sort of faux outrage, this pile on Harry Kane, when he's actually not done anything despicable? He's not doing the dirty, as the Guardian have said. I just think it's unfair. It's a bit churlish, and it just doesn't sit well with me at all. Okay, that's all for today. I'm around all day today, so if anything seismic happens, you could well get another burst. But until then, good luck. Keep it on.